Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of Goddamn Gamecube. If you like our show, please leave us a rating on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts today. And today's a good day in the studio because we're talking about Gears of War. We're talking about, this golden era of games from, 2006 to 2010, an era of games I like a lot. This series obviously went beyond that point. Riley, why don't you just take it away right off the bat? I'm feeling good. I'm in good spirits.
We're in very good spirits here. I guess to start out, why are we covering this series? Are you because I played this actually when it came out in 2006. And I think it's kind of fits into this theme we've been having of that era of Xbox games, and just kind of I feel like Xbox gets dragged a lot lately for not having a lot of games, and it's kind of, I guess, harkening back to that era. Is that what it is for you too?
You know what it is? I don't know. It could be a little bit of nostalgia because you and I were in high school at that time. It's when you're getting on Xbox Live with all your friends.
Yeah.
I didn't originate this comment, but someone said the modern golden era of games is 06 to 10. 06 to 2010.
It's a solid one.
And when I
sure.
think of all the competitive shooters you played during that time, Gears of War, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Ghost Recon, Rainbow, Halo, and on top of all the single player stuff. And I think we'd be doing a disservice to that era of games if we didn't cover Gears of War.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say this. This was actually the first game I got on Xbox 360 because I got this and Dead Rising together in 2006.
Yeah. It's and we should be clear, over the course of the next few episodes, we will be covering all the main titles through Gears 5. This one is just the first two games. But I did think it was funny. You just had a comment about, you were just talking to somebody that was like, I didn't even know there was a Gears 5.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of fallen out of it's not the most talked about series anymore.
No, I also feel like in the 2010s it fell off.
Yeah.
So, and now they tried to do a little revival, but we'll talk about that in a few hours.
Yes. So we're starting off with the first one here. And I remember my first impression of this was the Mad World commercial.
Yeah.
Which was very...
was that E3 or what was that? Was that like an Xbox 360 reveal? What was that?
I think so, but I kept seeing it as a commercial.
Okay.
And it's essentially, it's who we later learn is Marcus. He's running through this deserted city.
Yeah.
And he gets, he runs into a giant spider.
Yeah.
In the game, it's called a Corpser. And it's playing the Gary Jules cover of Mad World.
Yeah.
Which is very, it's very funny. These games are designed by this guy, Cliffy B. And we're going to get deeper into his character later, but he chose this song because it helped him get over his divorce, apparently.
Oh, wow. He's local, actually.
He is.
He is from 2 towns over from where we're recording right now.
Is he there right now? Can we get him in here?
No, I think he's in Carolina, but
Shit.
He is from Massachusetts originally.
That's interesting. But before I get too far off the topic, I do love the original version of Mad World.
Yeah.
By Tears for Fears. It's an awesome song.
The cover is very good, though.
Yeah. No, it's very tasteful. It fits the somber kind of atmosphere that we're going to get into here. One last little point about it, that commercial was directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed the recent Top Gun movie. So he's going places, this kid. But
can I actually tell you one anecdote before we start?
Yeah.
I remember, I think this is the first game that intern Nick and I played on the 360 Christmas morning.
I got it for Christmas as well.
Yeah. Big Christmas game. I actually, do you know what's
People
funny?
being fucking ripped apart by chainsaws.
Do you know
on
what's
Christmas.
funny? Someone on Xbox Live coined the term Christmas noobs.
Whoa, my God.
Because we were playing Gears of War.
That's a great one.
Yeah, we were playing Gears of War on Christmas Day, and everyone was so bad at it because they just got it for Christmas.
That's incredible.
But the anecdote I wanted to bring up is that it is one of the first times I laughed so hard I cried was playing this game. Was 30 seconds in, intern Nick chainsawed somebody, which we'll talk about that, and I cried laughing. I thought it was one of the funniest things I had ever seen on screen.
Yeah, it's I can see a lot of moms at the time being really worried about this game,
but I don't want to get ahead of myself.
No, that is really funny. But
go ahead.
One little anecdote about the title here. Apparently, I never knew this. It's an homage to Metal Gear
What?
because of Gear. Gears of
Is
War.
that a Cliff Bleszinski admission?
Yeah.
I would say these narrative styles are quite different.
Quite different. I never would have made the connection.
No,
you know,
me
it's
either.
really funny.
I will say this though, like they do a cute job with like it's called Gears of War. The cog is the military entity.
Yeah,
Like
all the imagery is very.
It's
strong.
not bad. It's not bad.
I will say I have a kind of a pin to put on this. I have to get into sort of the premise of these games. It is not set on planet Earth. It's set on a planet called Serra, following the discovery of this invaluable oil-like substance they call emulsion. This decades-long resource race unfolds, and it has left the COG, the Coalition of Ordered Government, it's really stupid, as the last surviving bastion of humanity on the planet. This is put to the test on what they call Emergence Day, when a race of subterranean creatures called the Locust rise out of the ground and begin invading the surface. What is left of humanity has gathered on the Jacinto Plateau, the only region the Locusts are unable to dig through, after destroying most of the remaining human cities with a satellite-based weapon called the Hammer of Dawn, which we will discuss in further detail later. So for me, to put a pin on this, Gears of War is like, on a macro level, it's kind of just dumpster sci-fi action to me.
Yes.
But on a moment-to-moment basis, I really like the bits, like the sandbox, you know?
Are we getting into aesthetic right now?
Let's save that for later. But I just mean like in general, like the setup, like it's just very, I don't know. Like on the whole, like I don't really give a shit about the story.
Yeah. What they don't really do is they don't really give you, because you start off right in the shit.
Yeah.
So they don't really give you any feel for what the world feels like to live in.
No.
Also, it just feels like this is the era of games where your character model is so big and bulky compared to the houses you walk through, where I can't imagine like Marcus Phoenix sitting in a chair.
It's hard.
Like he's so huge.
He's gigantic.
It doesn't make any sense.
Before we get into everyone's sizes, I want to ask you, how did this game feel to you to play in 2023?
Yeah, so actually the first note I have in my preparation for this episode is this game revolutionized cover shooting.
Yeah.
So what I believe, I am not misquoting Cliff Bleszinski here. I believe his favorite game was Resident Evil 4, and he wanted to do a cover shooter version of it.
Yeah.
I believe that was the inspiration for making this. Beyond, I didn't know Metal Gear Solid was an inspiration.
I don't know how much, but
let me say this. You and I were actually talking about this a few minutes ago before we started this recording.
Yeah.
Where Gears of War, one of the best things I can say about it is it plays so buttery smooth all the time in everything you do.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be understated.
No.
Where walking feels cool, running feels cool, aiming feels cool. Aiming feels cool when you're in cover, out of cover, leaning.
Yeah.
It all feels amazing.
Very tight.
And what's also cool is I really like any game where you can Mega Man roll.
Yeah.
And in this game, you can dive out of the way, sprint. Like, can we talk about roadie running?
Yes.
Like the sprinting animation is really weird, where your character gets like really small and like hedgehog-like and sprints.
You know what I love? I love that it's called roadie running, because it's like when they have to run on stage, you know, they can't get in the way. Of the show.
And I don't know what it is. I think me saying it revolutionized cover shooting, I think I'm right.
Yeah. No, I was going to bring up, like, I think the cover system is definitely the most innovative aspect. And I think it's because you magnetize so satisfying. Like the sound when you do it is great. It just feels very binary.
Yeah, you're reminding me of like when, well, actually, rest in peace to one of my high school friends who made this quote. He said I was talking with him about Gears of War when I was 14 years old.
Right.
And he said to me, Greg, I really like the game, but I don't know if I like that the A button is the everything button.
Oh, yeah.
Where like A slaps you into cover, A moves you over cover. Like it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Because I agree with that point in other games, actually, where it's kind of debilitating, where like I'm trying to do one thing and the button is doing another thing.
Yeah.
I never had that with the A button in these games.
No, I really think I made this comment off mic to intern Nick, where it surprises me how well this cover shooter plays when you're not in cover. It plays really well.
Yeah.
If I were to give you a comparable, Rainbow Six Vegas, it plays kind of like shit when you're not in cover.
Well, it goes into first person.
Yeah,
mode,
it's very different. We're not going to get into Rainbow Six, but it goes from first person to third. But it's the same era.
Right.
It is. I believe it was the same year.
Yeah.
Same year. But Gears of War it has this level of quality to the second gameplay, the animations, that is very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Specifically this one, but I was saying to you, like, generally speaking, I think Judgment is the only real test of this, but generally speaking, all of them play pretty well when you're on the ground, and
they all play great.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk about Judgment later, but there are some problems there.
Yeah. But okay, so another thing that is very unique to this game is the active reloading.
Thank you for bringing that up. I almost forgot.
So do you like it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've also never seen that, where this game has a mechanic where there's a little bit of like almost like a rhythm game or a timing game. Every time you reload your gun, you press the right bumper to reload, and you see a little marker run across the screen, and if you time it properly, your gun will either shoot faster, do more damage, etc. But if you blow the timing, your gun will jam, and the reload animation takes 2 or 3 times the amount of time.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've never seen this.
It's a nice little decision-making thing, and I gotta say, my reaction times were not quite what they were when I was in high school.
Oh, dude, I was all over it. I love it. Do you know what they do a cool job of, too? It feels like because of active reloading, the game has a rhythm to it.
Yes.
Where, like, you're unloading the magazine, you're pressing the right bumper, and each weapon has a different timing.
Right.
Like, not the little marker doesn't move at the same speed.
Yeah.
Like, if you're reloading the sniper rifle, it's 1 bullet at a time. It's very slow.
Yeah.
And you have to really, like, you have to almost remember the timing of each gun. It's such an interesting mechanic.
There's like, there's 3 kind of, so number 1, you can just press RB and just let it run out.
Yeah.
But you can either screw it up, you can get a faster reload, or you can get a bonus, essentially. Yeah. And I think this one also, because they mess with this a lot, this one has the perfect sounds for when you get into any of those. Like
yes.
That, you know, a little affirmative chime when you get it right. Another thing is when you take damage, you get the Crimson Omen.
Dude, you took it. You took this out of my mouth. I think this game has one of the coolest life meters I've seen.
Yeah,
where the screen doesn't turn red, but there's a red cog in the middle of the screen that gets redder and redder and redder until it's game over.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
And it also kind of gives you a little extra bit of a crosshair, like kind of helps you out a little bit as you're taking down. It's interesting.
And I just think it's just a good idea. And like I said before, the Coalition of Ordered Government, or whatever it's called, it's kind of stupid, but I kind of like how they wrapped it all together, where there's a cog on the screen that's your life meter. The military's called the cog. It's called Gears of War. They do a good job sort of hammering home the theme. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, you find dog tags, and the dog tags are little cogs.
The cog tags, yeah.
Oh, they're called cog tags, right? Yes. They do a good job, even if I think it's silly.
They're also, I think they're the only collectible I needed, you know, like they introduce more later, and it's like, I'm not as into this, but just, you know, a little kind of side meta game to kind of unlock shit. I like it. Did you mess around a lot with co-op and multiplayer in this game?
Yes. Yeah. I'd like to tip my hat to a good friend of the show. His name is Baber, is what we call him. Baber and I both have the Seriously achievement, which is 10,000 kills in multiplayer.
That's great.
So in high school, him and I probably played thousands of hours of Gears of War. I would say we got semi-competitive in Gears of War. We didn't go to any tournaments, but we played the same teams online all the time.
Yeah.
I remember very infamously, like, Baber was our sniper. I was the guy with the Boltok, right? The weird guy who would run around with the revolver.
Sure, yeah.
I remember we would always get into these sniper battles with a guy named Trigger Mike. And I remember when Trigger Mike would enter the lobby, Baber and him would go, dude, it's on.
Hopefully he hears this.
Dude, I hope if Trigger Mike, if you're out there, dude, I'd play 15 rounds Mansion with you again.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I played a bit of it as well. I thought it was very unique because it's kind of kind of different from Halo, where you don't respawn. You know,
It's Counter-Strike style.
Yeah.
Where it's one death is you're out of the round.
right.
I love Gears of War multiplayer. It may have been my favorite multiplayer of that generation that was not COD 4.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And I found out also, I had a friend who went to tournaments for the first game, and what surprised me was he was very young at the time, and he said that some guy got really mad at him because you're not supposed to use the Lancer. Like,
really?
It's like it's the fucking primary weapon, and
Yeah.
people get really mad if you use it. It's funny.
Well, you just said the word Lancer. Can we talk about how unique that weapon is?
I was
going
gonna
to
get into the weapons. Let's start
do
with
it.
the Lancer here.
I think a good word for this game, as much as we'll make fun of it over the course of a couple of hours, this game has a lot of iconic imagery in gaming to me.
Yeah.
The Lancer, which is just an assault rifle with a chainsaw on it, is the funniest thing I like. One of the funniest things I've seen in games.
It's great.
Like when you go to melee someone or pistol whip somebody, you rev up a chainsaw and one hit chainsaw them. You slice right through them.
Right.
And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's awesome.
It's great. It's very, I would say, one of the most iconic things about this game, if not the most. And it's very campy. Like, I don't think it's like disgusting or anything. It's just a huge spray of blood.
It's funny.
And I think what they do better at, it's a little like revisiting it now. It's because I like that you get interrupted. If like you can't just hold it down.
You can't just run around with it.
It has to be perfectly timed, essentially. And what they do a little bit better later on is that I think in 3 they add like a normal melee to the Lancer.
You have to hold the button down or not.
Yeah. And I think that's better. It makes it feel a little bit more, accessible.
And I think what's interesting, in the further games, they make the chainsaw animation more difficult to do. You have to rev it up and do it. In the first game, you just kind of go crazy.
Right.
But do what I think is really funny? I really like how when you chainsaw someone, your character just screams. It's really funny.
It's awesome.
There's a lot of yelling in this game.
So I'm gonna do something fun for these, where I just go through the weapons and you say yes or no.
Hell yeah.
If you have more to say, you can go ahead. So we're gonna go into the shotgun. It's called the Gnasher. I
love
guess. Yeah, it's very reliable.
The best parts about this game are when you shotgun someone and they blow into pieces. You just literally rip them into shreds.
Yes,
I think the gore in this game is really funny and cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of, those are your two mains for most of it, in my opinion. I will say that I think there's a little, before I forget, I think way too much ammunition in these games in general, especially this one.
Can I actually counteract that point and say I like that in this game?
Okay.
Typically, I'm the kind of guy where I'm like, brutalize me, make it really hard. Like,
But
in this game, I like how finding ammunition, it's not what's the word for this? It's not, what's the word when like you're playing Resident Evil and like ammo is finite, like you're like ammunition like scrambling or scrounging.
Yeah.
I like in Gears of War how finding ammo is not like a gameplay element. It is, but you always have hundreds. Like you can really just fire away because that's not the point.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I found myself bending down, pressing the X button a little too much.
You know what would have been cool if you just walk over it and get it?
Which they do.
They do.
At one point.
Yeah, they do.
We'll talk about that later. Okay, so back on the weapons here.
Yeah.
The long shot, the sniper rifle.
Love it. For me and Baber, our setup was long shot, Gnasher, Boltok all the time.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Love that.
I mean, now that we're talking about the long shot, there is something, I hope Gears of War fans understand what I'm saying, and I think we're going to have some nostalgia here. The sound of a headshot in Gears 1 is so funny to me. The pop. I want to know who sound designed that because it is so funny.
It sounds perfect.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, here's one I want to talk to you about, the hammer burst.
So I think the hammer burst in this game is the forgotten weapon.
Yeah.
It's just the generic weapon that the Locusts use.
Yeah.
It's probably the least fun in this game. They do cool stuff with it in other entries.
I agree. Yeah, because I think that's one of the... I get why they did it, because they didn't want to start you out with the Lancer and have it be complicated. Like, how does the chainsaw work? So they start you out with the hammer burst in the campaign, and I think it actually like kind of unfavorably starts the game in that way. The boom shot.
Yeah. The boom shot is super funny. It's like the grenade launcher or the rocket launcher of this game. It's considered a power weapon.
Yeah.
So you can't really pick up ammo for it. You have to kill enemies called boomers who hold them.
Yes.
Boom.
You know what my only note there is?
Yeah.
Not once in any of these games, I think Marcus should say boom when he shoots it too.
That would be funny. That's funny.
They never do it.
They never do it. Boom.
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 Oh my God. So, okay, the torque bow.
It's a really cool weapon. It's
Yeah.
just, I think it doesn't have much utility because the long shot will one-hit headshot things anyway.
That was my discovery playing this time.
Well, I'll say this, though. The torque bow is cool because it's kind of unique where you have to charge it up, and if you charge it enough, the arrow will stick to an enemy and one-shot kill them because they explode.
Yes.
It's a cool weapon.
Yeah, very much
It is
so.
interesting, especially like when enemies use it against you.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And it depends on what difficulty you're playing on, but if you're on, I think, hardcore up, one shot will kill you.
Yep.
And it's really funny hearing your character say something like because there's a couple seconds before it explodes and they'll acknowledge that they're screwed somehow.
I don't think they do it in the first game.
No.
It's in the other ones.
But like, for example, it'll be like, I hope it's a dud.
Yeah, or I think someone later on they'll say, "I'll miss you guys." Yeah. It's interesting.
That's really funny. Okay, so talking about gameplay wise, what do we think of the Locust?
What do we think of the? Okay, here's where actually I'm going to say one thing before we go into the Locust.
Sure.
The bolt hawk is my shit. No one
I
likes
forgot
it.
about the pistols.
I fucking
yeah.
love the bolt hawk.
Yeah,
that's my shit. Anyway, if we're talking,
okay. What about the other pistol?
The snub.
Yeah,
it's interesting how you can headshot people with it.
It is. I think if it looked cooler, I'd use it more.
Yeah.
I guess we should also talk about the grenades.
Yeah, that's cool. So I think what's interesting about the grenades is how like you like swing them almost like a what's that called?
A bolo.
Like yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
And then you kind of fling them and swing them around.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Fucking Hammer of Dawn.
Yeah, the hammer.
well.
Yeah, the Hammer of Dawn's almost like a story weapon where it calls in almost like a pillar of fire from a satellite in the sky.
Like a big laser.
Yeah, it's like a big laser.
That's not in multiplayer at all, is it?
It is.
It is.
It is in some
wow.
maps. Power weapon.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess lastly the curb stomp also.
I think what's really funny is do you remember how when you curb stomp somebody in this game, Marcus Venus will talk shit.
Yes.
He'll say like "suck my boot." Do you remember that? or something like that? It's funny.
There's a lot of that in this game. But it's kind of like when you down an enemy without
without like popping their head off or turning them into bits. Sometimes you have to execute them.
And they go crazy with it in the next couple of games, but that's the only thing you can do in this one, which is funny. But sorry, back to the Locust here.
So I actually gonna give a comparison here that I think you'll appreciate.
Yeah.
To me, the Locusts are like the Uruk-hai of this game.
Very much so.
Where this is what I like about Gears of War. We'll probably talk about it in the next few minutes.
Yeah.
To me, this game is kind of scary.
Yeah.
And because the Locusts kind of speak English, they kind of speak, I should say the language that your guys do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, they don't say it's English, but you know what I'm talking about.
If you're playing the game in Spanish, they'll speak Spanish.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So essentially the Locusts are speaking a human language.
Yeah.
And they're communicating with each other, and they're also really muscly and big and scary.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this. There's an aspect of this game that I think the other ones don't have, where it's kind of gloomy, it's kind of like down in the dumps, and the enemies are kind of scary because of how human-like they are.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot.
Yeah, for sure. With respect to the gameplay and fighting them, though, like you have like the standard ones that are running around like the soldiers, and the Theron guards, which are like the elite guys who use the torque bows. They're very tough. The wretches are the little ones that crawl around and crawl on the ceilings and
Probably
shit.
some of my least favorite are the wretches and the other little stuff.
They're like the what would you call them? Kind of just like the pests, I guess. Like there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like that's the switch to the shotgun enemy.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And the boomers, which we've mentioned, they're big giant guys with the boom shots. They just walk around and say boom.
Yeah, those guys are great.
Can't beat them. But I did want to get into that a little bit. We were talking about with the tone. With this first game especially, you have this. It's really weird dichotomy going on between this sort of melancholic tone. The music, I think, plays a big part of it, like the little sting, like that.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that with these absurdly like muscle bound men, like
Yeah.
this on this journey together, and even like Hoffman is kind of jacked.
Yeah.
You know, like the
So
older guy.
essentially everyone in this game is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And there's something about it. Maybe you can articulate it better than me. There's something about it where this is one of those like big bros, big guns games, but there's something like very like, I'm trying to use a word that's better than gloomy. Like there's something just very like overwrought about this world where the monsters are coming out of the ground, everyone's dead, like you're fucked essentially.
I think it's actually a really interesting, I don't want to be like disappearing up my navel here, but like in terms of war games that were coming out around this time,
yeah,
I think this is the first one I can remember that was kind of portraying it negatively.
Yes.
You know, because we'd been in Iraq for a couple of years, and it was kind of tolling on our cultural conscience. And this is I can't, like, Halo 2 is very upbeat. You know, a lot of like the Call of Duties were still in World War II at the time.
Yeah.
This is the first one that was kind of a bummer about it, and I think it really hammers that home with all the gear imagery and how soldiers are treated as cogs to be replaced, and you get further into it in the story. But
I think you're giving the game a lot of rope here. But yeah, you're right.
But you know what
right.
I mean, though, like versus the other games, which can't be accused of saying anything.
No, you're right. I think there's a lot of like in this era, there's a lot of like American war hero, America World Police kind of stuff, and Gears of War is like, dude, everything's down in the dumps. Everything's bad. There aren't much of us left.
Yeah.
Like this is what we've got.
Our objectives are not really clear. We're not even sure if they're going to work.
Yeah.
You know, throwing good lives away after bad. So do you like the overall art direction of like the cog and the locust and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this in the further games. There's something right about what this game looks like, and other games in the Gears franchise don't look right to me.
Right.
I think it's really like, I sound like Riley here, but I feel like for me, like all the gray tones and everything's drab.
Yeah.
The entire time. I don't know if you see any fucking scenery in this game. It might just be concrete and blues and grays and occasional grass.
I don't think there's any like vistas or anything like that. No, there's no
You're in. You go underground at some point, but
yeah,
it's all bad.
When you're in the cities, it almost has a little bit of a noir feel.
Yeah,
like at the nighttime chapter,
and everything's always overcast, right?
Yep.
Either because of like explosion clouds, like you don't really know.
Right.
It's the entire game has just this. I don't want to use the word dark. It has this overcast feel the whole time.
But it's so significant, and I can't believe that literally none of the other ones do it.
No,
none of them.
No, they don't.
So yeah, I also, with respect to the design of I really like all the dichotomy between the different weapons, how they look, how the locust stuff is really jagged and messed up, and it's kind of weird how the color changes on the lights depending on who's using it.
Yeah, it's cool. There are like these little like light indicators on the sides of the weapon. Blue is human and red is locust.
If you pick up a locust weapon, it'll glow blue and vice versa, which I think is interesting. So another thing that I'd like to try to make a mainstay of this podcast is a voice cast performance review and a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
And if you have any thoughts, just new people every time. Okay, so number one, of course, John DiMaggio. He portrays both Marcus Phoenix and Franklin.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is interesting. So I'm a big thumbs up for this.
I actually, what's interesting about this game? We'll get into all the stuff, but I'm not telling you this is like great storytelling or whatever.
No.
But I think the voice performances in this game are like awesome.
Yeah. Especially for the time.
For some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe they fell ass backwards into all of this stuff working out. I'm not sure. But all of the, the big guys, big guns, rough and gruff, it's all like just serious and scary enough where I love it. And there's some very good humor in this game, and there's not too much of it.
Yeah.
There's just enough humor where I think this game is really cool.
And I think his performance is a really big part of it.
Yes.
Because I can see a version of Marcus Phoenix, the primary character, that does not work for me at all, and he does.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's good.
And you know what he is? He is a protagonist I don't tend to like.
Right.
I tend to kind of roll my eyes. But there's something about it that they got right.
You know what it is like he's very beaten down, but it doesn't quite get into that like satirical level.
No.
It's very just sincere.
Yeah.
So he gets a thumbs up for me. Carlos Ferro as Dominic Santiago.
It's fine. He's like the it's not a buddy comedy, but he's the buddy.
I think he does his job well. Like,
Yeah.
he's this kind of the straight man of the group.
Can I tell you something? I actually think in the other games his performances are worse. I think
Really?
in the first game he kind of crushes it, but when they make him get too mushy, gushy, and emotional, he gets worse.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, big one here. Lester Spate as Augustus Cole.
Dude, this is my guy.
He's He's the number one,
Dude,
right?
do you know what's so funny? So before Gears of War, the only thing I saw him in was Office Linebacker.
Oh, okay.
You remember that skit?
Yes.
From the early internet?
Long time ago.
I think I'm glad you brought him up, because he is the aspect to this game where he gives you just enough levity where the game is very charming.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but for some reason it all works.
Yeah.
And like he's kind of like the guy who has some of the one-liners, former football player, thrashball in this universe. Everyone knows him as a star athlete.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, they're trying, like, and I believe Lester Spite, he was not an NFL player. I believe he was an arena football player, or
Right.
he was at some kind of pro level.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, man. He has just enough levity and he's just funny enough, but it doesn't happen too much.
Yeah, it doesn't get over the top or get overused.
But it is over the top, right? But it's just
But it doesn't get like annoying.
no, it
you
doesn't.
know?
But in the other games, I think it does.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, they call him the Cole Train.
Yeah, hell yeah. Woo woo.
Yeah. Woo woo. He gets the rap at the end of the
credits. That rocks.
That's great stuff. Okay, Fred Tatasciore as Damon Baird and the voice of the Berserker.
He's both?
Yeah.
This
guy plays monsters a lot, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Damon Baird is the annoying character, right? He's kind of an asshole.
I think he's good. I think he's very good.
No, I think honestly, I'm going to give you a good review for everyone you talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think he captures kind of, because he and Marcus butt heads a lot, and I really like their bickering.
You know what it is? Do you think maybe what we're unearthing here is, even though this is kind of a big bro action game, each character has a personality.
That's true.
They're all very different, right?
Yep.
Like you have Marcus, who's like your kind of beaten down gruff guy, but he's not very emotionally like outward, right? Dom is almost the positive figure, right? And then Baird is like the really smart guy who's an asshole.
Yes.
And like and Cole is the funny man. He's the levity.
Right.
Right.
They have kind of a Ghostbusters.
Yeah, they have like
dynamic.
good banter too.
Yeah. It's a great, that's kind of your band of characters there. Jamie Alcroft as Colonel Victor Hoffman.
He doesn't do much in this, right?
He makes the most of his time, I think.
Yeah, he makes the most of his time, but he's in the beginning and the end. He's not in the game that much.
No, not very much, but I think he's, over the course of the series, he's kind of your generic military tough guy.
Yeah.
Very funny. Okay, Robin Atkin Downs as Min Young Kim and Chaps.
So I love Chaps. Chaps is so funny. The gas station guy.
Yes.
So I mean, he's probably in the pivotal cutscene in the game.
Yes.
Right. Where he gets executed by one of the Locust commanders. He literally gets like skewered on the sword.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't like this actor because he fucked up Prince of Persia: Warrior Within.
Yeah.
So fuck this guy, but he does a good job.
Yeah, he's good in this game.
Yeah.
He has so many voice roles. Okay, Michael Goh as the Carmine family.
Oh, I love this. I mean,
it's cute.
Yeah, I really like this. I mean,
I think especially in the second game, I think he does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
He's great.
The Carmine's like the generic soldier in the helmet.
Yes.
So for people who don't know,
Carmine is it's basically a running joke that he's like the Kenny in South Park. He's doomed to die.
He gets killed in every episode.
It's just different brothers.
Yeah,
that's really funny. Okay, maybe the first kind of meh one for me, Nan McNamara as Anya.
Well, she doesn't do a heck of a lot in this.
No, she doesn't really shine until the third one, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. D. Bradley Baker as the voice of the Locust.
They're all great.
And Bruce Dubose as the Boomer.
He's great.
Big, huge claps for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're scary and cool.
They're great. One last presentation note here. The Jack decloak and rip that door. Your little invisible robot buddy.
Your little robot buddy.
it's such a fascinating thing. Like they use it as a loading screen. Like he's ripping open the doors.
Yep.
I've never seen it before like that.
No,
you
it's
know?
cool. They do a lot more with Jack, and I think successfully later on.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You kind of forget that you have a robot buddy with you.
Yes, he's just invisible.
He
the
just
whole
opens.
time.
He's almost like Baird's little R2D2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really funny. And lastly, actually, did you play the Ultimate Edition this time or the original?
This time I played the original. You're referring to the PC version that has the extra chapter?
No, the Ultimate Edition was released in, I believe, 2015, and it was basically a high-end kind of remaster.
I
of
played the
first
original.
game. So I think it doesn't quite capture the vibe of the original, but it's close enough for me.
Does it look a little too glossy?
A little bit, yeah. Little too. They didn't really get the oppressive vibe that we were after, but it's fine. And it does include those extra chapters, which we're about to talk about. So you ready for the story here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so each of these games is divided into 5 acts, I think, most of them anyway. And so I'm just gonna kind of go act by act here.
Yeah, sure.
So Act 1 is Dom is breaking you out of prison. Your old buddy Marcus has been in I didn't realize that they didn't tell you why he's in prison.
No, they don't tell you.
And he's saying that Colonel Hoffman pardoned everybody else. We need you for this plan to get rid of the Locust finally. It's like 14 years, I think, after.
Yeah, essentially, like you play as Marcus Phoenix if it's single player. You're in military prison for some reason.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's some kind of like behavior thing, essentially. Yeah. But Dom breaks you out because they don't have enough soldiers left, and they're all war prisoners are now re-enlisted.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gives you your gym bag, and you put your gear on, and you get out of there. Right. Yeah. And so you link up with Colonel Hoffman, and he has this plan to they're going to map the Locust tunnels underneath the surface of the planet. With this device called the Resonator. And
I remember like the way my friend Baber and I make fun of this game is it's a lot of shooting dudes and the Resonator, people yelling the Resonator.
They talk about it quite a lot.
They talk about it a lot.
And that's kind of you have to recover this device because it's with another squad.
And I always forgot that like I believe it's Cole's squad that has it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alpha squad.
Yeah.
So you're Delta squad. You're at the beginning. You're Marcus, Dom, Carmine, the kind of red shirt character, and Kim is your commanding officer. And you're going through the city. Carmine gets picked off by a sniper very abruptly because his gun jams, and he gets replaced with Cole pretty early on.
Yep.
And you kind of run through there's the Cedars, those big things.
I don't think they make an appearance in the franchise again.
Second one.
That's it,
I think.
Okay.
And I have a note about that actually, but they're these big crab creatures that shoot like these inky things called Nemesis into the sky, and they like overcast everything. So you take those out with the Hammer of Dawn laser thing.
And I think you have to take them out so the Hammer of Dawn can fire, right? Is that why you have to take out the Cedars? Because I think they're clouding the airspace.
I think it's for the helicopter to land.
Could be. It's some kind of. They're almost like anti-air things.
Yeah, exactly. And so you arrive at this tomb where the Resonator is being held, and this is where Kim gets killed by General Ram, the Locust guy.
He goes unnamed.
Yes,
I believe.
I think he's only in the credits.
Yeah,
and he runs him through with his big sword, which is very gnarly.
But then I don't think Ram actually. You never see the sword again. I don't think it's only that time.
It's interesting. And you reconnoiter here with Baird, and there's a lot of friction right off the bat, which I love. Very, very catty relationship between him and Marcus. And this is the part with the Berserker.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak about this at all?
Interesting. This is kind of their version of a boss fight.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of a puzzle boss. Where you have to essentially get the Berserker to bust through a bunch of doors to make your way outside so you can use the Hammer of Dawn on it because it can't be killed with bullets.
Yes.
You have to burn it.
And it's blind and you have to like make noise to lure it around.
Yeah. Kind of a puzzle boss.
I enjoyed it. And that's the end of the first act. So the second act might be my favorite. It might be my favorite in the whole series, but this is you have the Resonator now, and you have to get it to the tunnels, but you have to reach this like miles away, this facility where you're going to dig under the surface, right? So to get there, you need a car.
Yeah.
So you have to hit up Dom's friend Franklin to get this car, and you basically have to do a deal with him where you go and get it.
Well,
and,
I think this is the part where you encounter those people called the Stranded.
Yes.
That are like, they're not in the COG. They were kind of left behind when settlements were made.
Right.
Where COG took over cities and they were left outside.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, there's a lot of friction between them as well, where they're kind of harassing you, and you walk into the town, and it's just they seem worse off than
and
the
you
COG.
get the impression that the COG is not popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is the most interesting about this is that this is when night happens and the krill come out, and I fucking love this shit, man.
So I love this, except for the vehicle sequence that's coming soon.
Well, yeah, but in terms of the parts where you're on the ground and you have to like shoot propane
you have to
tanks
create
and
light sources, because if you go in the dark, the krill will
eat you,
pounce from the sky and tear you apart.
Yes, and they're only in this game, and
Yeah.
I think it's one of the coolest parts. Of the
And I like how
entire
they can
game.
eat the enemies too.
Yeah, if they get
They will
stuck
kill
out there.
anything in the dark.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, the krill, and then you get to the gas station where the car is, and this fight is great. All the action is great. But you're correct, absolutely correct, that this vehicle segment is abysmal.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think this franchise is guilty of bad vehicle sequences.
There are very few that I would ride for. I'll say that much. But this is very clunky, where
especially in single player.
Yeah, because you have to physically switch between driving the car and there's a UV turret on the roof.
What's the quote from Chaps?
Like, one of you idiots needs to use the UV turret.
Yeah, dude. I hated this. Like, every time I played this game, this is the part where I roll my eyes.
It's just, none of it feels good.
No.
And I can see in my mind's eye, I'm picturing like there's a version of this game where it plays like the Batmobile from Arkham Knight, and it's very smooth, but it's just not. It's very clunky.
Nope.
So that's unfortunate. But you have like a little bit of a siege segment here, and then you take off for Act 3, which is going into that mine in the factory. What do you think about this one?
Is this where you get like the wretches that blow up?
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Yeah.
It might be my least favorite gameplay segment.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's because you're going down into this dark area. Everything starts to look the same.
This is essentially how you're trying to get in underground, right?
Yeah,
You're trying to
so
go
you
through
can
a factory.
deploy this resonator and map out their tunnels. And I think that the corpser boss fight is really disappointing.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
You just kind of back it up and drop it into the lava or whatever. And you run into the Theron guards here, which I love. I think it's a very successful encounter. It's very tense. You hear them whispering.
Yeah.
And you what I think is maybe my favorite moment in the entire series is how you finally deploy the resonator and it doesn't work.
Yeah. The whole time you're like, oh, we have to get the resonator underground. You finally get underground. You almost go to like a locusts have taken over like a mining facility underground or something. Like
emulsion
mining facility. You siege that. You place the resonator, and I guess it works, but it only maps a tiny amount of the underground.
Yeah, and I think that's very strong, and I think getting to the next plot beat is a little sweaty, where it's like, oh, Marcus, your dad actually knew all about this stuff, and if you go to his house, I found this robot that told me this. And it's very like, I don't know, man, but
I think I told you this when I was replaying this a couple of months ago. I forgot that anything after this happened, except the train at the end, which we'll get to.
I like the last two acts a lot. It's just getting to the next part of the story is very like, well, and they do the same thing in the next one, but the fourth act is basically what I call the Marcus's house chapter.
Yep.
And I like this a lot, where you have to you go in the basement, and you have to defend it from the roof with a sniper rifle and stuff. It's really enjoyable. They like break down the doors like Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Very similar. And so Act 5, I want to say, so you get the data from his house. And Act 5 has these lost chapters that I wanted to talk about very briefly. So they weren't in the original release of the game. And essentially what happens at the end of Act 4 is you escape from Marcus's house, and you get chased by this thing called a Brumak, which is basically a giant T-Rex with guns on it.
Yep.
And it's you escape from it, and that's it. But in this version of the game that I played, which is from I think a PC port from years ago, there's actually a chapter where you have to, or a couple chapters where you have to work around it and take it down.
Yeah, and kill the Brumac.
And essentially my review of this is that the fight with the Brumac is a lot of fun, but everything else just does not feel on par with.
So it makes sense that they cut it.
Yeah, or at least you can see that they stopped fine tuning it. At a point. But I actually really enjoy the train part. Do you like the train?
Yeah, I feel like there have been a couple of good video game trains, like Resident Evil 0, the only good part of that game.
Yes.
And then I like this train part.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're getting on this locust train. Is this the light mass bomb thing? You're trying to set...
Yeah, so you're trying to upload the data that you got from Marcus's house into this bomb that's going to go underground and wipe out all the locusts.
Yeah, but you're taking a train to get... locust train to get there.
A human train.
Is it a human... Or locusts have taken it over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very they really set it up with like, oh, the locusts have taken over the train. You got to get to the train station and jump on really quick. And I really love that building up to this climax is a very fast moving, like, you're seeing that's actually an interesting vista, but it's also very dour. You see the countryside. It's very inked over and fucked up looking. It looks awesome. This looks awesome.
And they make you fight a berserker on the train, which is cool. You got to disconnect a train car.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's cool.
And I really like, because I hate them in the other games, when you have to shoot off the reavers.
Yeah.
I think they're very cool looking.
Yeah.
Like these big squids that they ride, essentially. And then you have a final boss fight with that general that killed...
General Rom.
Yes. So what do you think of this fight?
I actually always find this fight very difficult.
I find it very confusing.
Yeah, I never quite know what I'm doing.
Right.
I think you essentially have to get... He's shielded by krill.
Yeah.
You got to get the krill off him and then just take shots at him.
Yes.
But I think Cole and Baird are actually helping you from a side helicopter.
Yeah.
And I never know whether to try to get to the minigun or just to keep shooting with the Lancer.
Yeah.
Because you get one hit quickly. Whether he's shooting you or the krill kill you in one hit, it's really hard.
You have to make sure you're like above some lights that are on the floor.
Yep.
And it's the only real helping hand they give you is the torque bow.
Yeah.
You can pick up, and that shakes the krill off them really quick.
It's a cool final boss setup.
It is, and you drop the train into the
tunnel,
into the tunnel, and the bomb goes off, and it's. And that's the end of the locust.
And it's hoorah for these guys.
That's it.
Yeah.
And but it's very like, I think the end of the game is, for the most part, it's like a little bit of relief, but it's not. You don't feel like excited, or it still maintains that cool. And there's this really stupid final shot of, okay, so it's fine in the original game where you see a high-ranking locust looking at you from afar, like you didn't get all of them, and he's riding like a big reaver. And in the Ultimate Edition, they replace it with a character from a later game, which we'll get to, and I think it's really stupid. But
sure.
Conclusion for this game: how does this hold up in 2023? And do you think younger audiences or unfamiliar audiences would like this at all?
There's only one problem with Gears of War. It has nothing to do with the game.
Okay.
There's been too much cover shooting since.
Yeah.
And so now, I see waist-high walls. There's going to be a shooting segment.
Right.
There's two... Back then, because these games didn't exist, it's cool. It's all new. It's all fresh.
Right.
But now when I'm walking into a level and I see a bunch of waist-high walls, I'm like, there's going to be a shooting segment.
Right.
It's going to drag on you. It's going to feel like you're going through the motions.
Yeah.
But this game at the time rules.
Yeah.
Do I think people would like it today? I don't know. I don't know.
It's at least unique.
You know what though? I'm gonna say yes because it still plays like butter.
Yeah.
It's not clunky at all.
Right.
In 2023. It plays awesome.
I mean, it received a great deal of acclaim at the time.
It should.
I think it's been very influential, and we don't really talk about it. One of those things,
You asked me actually in the first minute, why are we covering this? If I were to answer the why, I would say for some reason Gears of War is kind of going unheralded during that golden era of games.
It's almost a Prince of Persia situation where people don't realize how influential it was.
It was a huge game when it came out, but I feel like I feel like as soon as Halo 3 came out, no one cared anymore. Right? Kind of, right?
Yeah. I mean, because there really wasn't a lot of fanfare for 2.
No, not at all.
When it was coming out. So getting into final thoughts for this one and grades, I just want to say that for me, to reiterate, this game is the only one that feels like this. It's the only one that's kind of like a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
Very, very
aesthetically.
Not like an annoying or in a way like Last of Us 2 that's going to drag you down, but it's very kind of, whereas a lot of other games mishandle the tone and make it a little too...
For some reason, this sort of like a dreary, gloomy, like sort of doomed world feels good in this game, I don't feel depressed playing it.
Right.
It's just I feel like they threaded the needle. I think is the right way to put
I
this.
agree. What grade would you give it?
I'm going high, but how high? If I were to say A-, how would you feel?
I agree.
Wow. Are we going consensus A-?
Right on the money there.
What I'm trying to think about is, why is it not an A?
Yeah, I think just if it was a little bit like the higher level stuff worked for me more, if I cared more about the overall
I think the vehicle
conflict.
sequences are weak.
Yeah, there's only really one in this game though, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks, and it's just like, I don't know. It's up there though.
It's
for
up
sure,
there. I
sure.
can't really pick it apart. Like, it's very good.
It's really tight. Okay, so shall we get into Gears of War 2?
Unfortunately, sure.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not.
Okay, so this one, developed by Epic and published by Microsoft in 2008. I wanted to address another trailer. Was directed by that guy Joseph Kaczynski. Really cool trailer. Where it's basically just Marcus and Dom in like Locust territory, and you just hear this. It sounds like an old radio transmission of this guy reciting a poem, and it's very it shows like Marcus holding a Locust hostage and running into battle and stuff. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I think it might be better than the game.
It is.
But
you're right.
It's really cool. But that was my first taste of it. Wanted to address that they hired a comic book writer named Joshua Ortega. I feel like whenever they do this in games, it's a bad idea.
I don't know whether perhaps there just isn't enough discourse about Gears of War Online.
Yeah.
I never hear people talk like we do, where the first one is great because of the atmosphere and because of the aesthetic, but people only talk about how gory and funny it is.
Yeah.
To me, it's not funny. But when they...
Well, you did laugh at the chainsaw
Well,
parts.
yeah, well, sorry. What I mean is like the tone of the game is not funny.
Right.
But I think like in Gears of War 2... It's just, you said they hired this person who works in comic books.
Yeah.
Is that for art style wise or writing wise?
For writing.
I don't know. Like, I can't blame this guy, but there's something wrong with 2.
Yeah. It's and you know what it is that I don't think it's the we'll get to what I believe is the lowest point. I don't think it's the lowest point of the franchise, Gears of War 2. I think it's the beginning of the slide.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just a couple things that they got wrong, which we'll get into. The premise of this one is that it turns out the Locusts survived, and the story begins as the COG are launching this big offensive against the Locust home turf, right? So it has a much more kind of action-oriented, large scale feel to it. I'd like to get into some of the mechanical changes, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So the first thing I'd like to mention is that, so I played a bit of the first game online, and I remember the only thing that people were, the only problem that people had with it was that it was not matchmaking.
Yeah.
It was, and it was
Counter-Strike style.
Yeah. And host advantage was a big kind of issue with it.
Mm-hmm.
This game had matchmaking that didn't work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I remember, when I could get a match, it was super fun. I had a blast, but it was very few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
I have conversely, a lot of very fond memories of the Horde mode, which is a survival mode.
The problem I have is that it seems like the success of Horde mode made the developers and further developers put Horde mode into the single player in some aspects, which ended up bothering me.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's fairly separate in this game.
Yeah.
It's just kind of them getting creative with the assets and the enemies and stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely.
We're a lot of fun with that. So I wanted to ask you about this. How do you feel about the Lancer duels?
Oh, you mean like when you go to chainsaw each other and you have to mash the button?
Yeah.
It's okay. Like
I feel like it's not as cool as it could be.
For some reason, you know what it is? It's just, for some reason, it frustrates me more than just getting chainsawed.
Really?
Because I don't get it. I don't really like button mash fests,
Right.
and I don't love it for that reason.
I think it looks really cool. And there was a way to make it fun, but it just didn't happen.
And it doesn't quite do it for me.
Right. I do like the you can take humanoid enemies hostage.
Yeah.
In this game, you have the pistol over their shoulder.
Yep.
And they'll take some shots for you, and you just break their neck.
Yeah.
And you're done with them. There's quite a lot more executions in this one. And they kind of keep expanding it.
I just think these are the wrong things to expand on.
So let me tell you my feelings is that I think the majority of them look very cool, but it kind of because there's basically unique ones for each weapon, or at least they get to that point over the course of the series. And when I think they all look really cool, but it kind of incentivizes playing the game worse.
Yes.
Because you
want to see the goofy thing.
Yeah, so you're not going for the headshot or a quick kill.
And I just think it starts to dip the game into an aspect of silliness or an aspect of what's the word? I don't know what word I'm looking for. Almost not like gore obsession or let's make the theatrics of killing someone even more visually funny.
It's I'd say more cartoony.
It's for sure. And I don't love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just whereas the first game had a tinge of seriousness, it's kind of gradually getting away from it.
Correct.
So yeah, the identity crisis of the hammer burst is continues in this game where it's now a single shot rifle and it's called the hammer burst. It doesn't really make any sense.
I actually like how it's single shot.
I like it better.
Should have just been called the hammer shot. Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
I don't know. It's and the changes will continue, but okay, thumbs up, thumbs down weapons, all right?
Sure.
Flamethrower.
Thumbs down.
Same. Chain gun.
Fine.
I like it. It's annoying.
It's annoying. This is where they start introducing those power weapons.
Turrets.
Yeah. Almost like the you can move around with power weapons.
Yeah.
You're talking about the mulcher, the chain gun?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah, you have to use it too much.
I like the mortar.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's because you have to kind of figure out at what distance.
There's actually a strategy to it. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. The machine pistol.
I like it.
I like it.
Is that the Gorgon?
I think it sounds cooler than it works in this game, but I think later on it gets better.
I mean, the Boltock's my shit. Never put it down.
It's tough to beat that. The revolver.
It is cool.
I don't really like the ink grenade, to be honest with
Me
you.
either.
I don't think it does anything.
Because you can just Mega Man roll out of the way.
Yeah.
And enemies do it.
And it doesn't
will Mega Man roll out of the way.
It's only really works if somebody's stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm very fond of some of the creatures in this game. Some of the new enemies. I really love the tickers.
Yeah.
They're just so cute. They're just little living bombs that crawl around the battlefield. I really did not like fighting the Reavers when they land. They're big bullet sponges.
They're just big bullet sponges.
It's it just doesn't work. I think the blood mounts are pretty cool.
I don't dislike them. Kind of reminds me of the Lord of the Rings.
Like wargs?
The wargs, but I think I said this to you actually, I think a week ago, where I said, your as in the royal you, not you, Ryan. Your opinion on the Gears of War sequels is going to depend on how much you like the variations on the gameplay.
Sure.
Where to me, I don't really like them.
Right.
Or I just think when you have to fight essentially the wargs, what are they called in this game?
Blood mounts? Yeah.
Where they forced you to get out of cover and shoot over the shoulder, and it doesn't play badly.
Right.
It just gets a little bit too far away from the theme for me.
Sure.
And I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here because I like that they tried to vary it. I like how they get away from cover shooting. It's just not. I just don't love how it plays. I don't love it.
Well, I think if it was more fluid, it would work better.
Again, it's another one of these kind of bullet spongy kind.
A little bit. If they, much later on, they introduced health bars, which would have been very welcome.
Yeah.
But I like how they have a rider, like a locust riding it, and it'll. How you handle it will depend on whether you kill the bloodman or the rider first. There's the priest guys who resurrect downed locust. I think I like their design and
their design is cool, but I think we're getting away from the realism theme here.
Yeah.
So they're a magic locust now?
Well, yeah, but it's kind of like Resident Evil 4 with those guys.
What guys?
The glory to las plagas.
Oh, yeah. Well, that game's stupid the whole time.
Yeah. Well, so is this.
Yeah.
So is this one.
Yeah, this one.
And they do a lot with the boomers in this one. I actually like the guys with the big exploding flails or whatever.
So this is another one of these things where your mileage is going to vary depending on how much you like them sort of interrupting the cover-based gameplay.
Right.
I don't mind the flail guys, but I think the game gets a little hectic. Like, it gets a little messy when this stuff gets involved.
Really, I think mostly just because of the way it plays. If they had found a better way of, getting up out of cover and, being more motile, like it would have been...
It feels like when these guys come up to you, I'm going to do a dive backwards. I'm going to shoot.
Get into a cover further back.
I don't love it.
Yeah, I just like the design more than I like their implementation.
Yeah, sure.
I do think an interesting bridge between the two is those rockworm guys.
Yeah.
And they're just like living worms that have like really tough skin that you can hide behind.
Weird, right?
Interesting. Yeah, so getting into some presentational aspects here. As we mentioned, the bleak tone is very much missing, I would say, from here and here on out. I like the art direction a lot, but the performance and fidelity of this game have aged miserably, I would say. Do you agree with this?
You know what's funny? I may have the opposite opinion of you on this. I actually think like the bright colors and the art design I dislike in this game, but I actually think it looks very good and it plays very good.
For whatever, maybe because I played Ultimate Edition first, but I was like, I think you were talking about how it feels weird.
Yeah.
I thought that some of this might have been that there is way too much happening on screen for the console to handle.
Could be.
I think it's because you're getting into these situations with these huge armies.
Multiple blood mounts, multiple guys swinging flails. There's just a lot
like
happening.
when you're on the derrick and you see like hundreds of guys below you. It's a lot. And I think notably, we talked about the Cedars earlier. This is the last one where they show up. And I'm curious if that was like the ink, like that effect was messing with the game's engine, because I thought it ran way worse than the first one.
I didn't run into a ton of performance issues. I'm going to hammer on this. I'm going to hammer of Dawn on this a lot. I just feel like the bright colors and the palette in this game, I have a weird taste in my mouth for this game.
Yeah. I mean, because I think it gets worse than the next one.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's definitely a step down.
Yeah.
I just like a lot of the enemy designs and some of the locations and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Very quick voice cast performance review. We have Fred Tatasciore, who also voiced Baird. He voices Ty Caliso.
I think we're going thumbs down here because it gets a little bit too silly.
Yes,
right?
But I have a question for you about this character. Do you think the intent is that he's full of shit?
No idea. I think if that's the case, then he's become a caricature of himself.
Yeah,
right?
because he's very he's a gear soldier that is like more spiritual.
Do you know what he reminds me of? I hope you'll find this funny. He reminds me of the spiritual guy from Rocket Power.
Oh, Tito?
Yeah. Or he's kind of like the Tito guy.
Yeah, but he has some line about when they're going through a tunnel, and he says, Carmine says, "Why don't they give us flashlights?" And because you have to use the truck's flashlights behind you, and he says, "Might over light," and somebody says, "What does that mean? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, it means that I take an extra gun over a flashlight any day." And it's like that. Number one, that doesn't make any sense. And number two, it's such a shitty, like,
weird
aphorism.
Strange.
Like,
actually, if you don't mind, I actually have a note in my prepreparation it's very simple. It says Ty and Dizzy both suck.
Yeah. So we have Peter Jason as Dizzy. So he's like, how would you describe this character?
I can't. It's silly, right?
A silly cowboy.
He's kind of like romanticizes his cars, right? And like his
names his truck Betty.
Yeah.
He's not in the game for very much.
I don't like him.
He's just, you'll never be Colin Baird. You know?
No.
You're not my boys. Okay. How about Carolyn Seymour as the Locust Queen?
I understand how they wanted to evolve the plot.
Yeah.
I think she's fine.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, like I'm gonna, kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth. I understand the plot wanted to get bigger. The Locusts have a leader. It's her. I just don't love it. It's hard.
Well,
right?
here's my issue is that it makes sense. It's cool that they have a queen because they're kind of bug-like.
Yes. Yeah.
But in terms of like compare it with Aliens, where you see the queen and it makes perfect sense and it's disgusting. This is like this beautiful woman who's in charge of the locusts, and it's just like, I don't know, her performance is fine. It's just she's doing the job.
Yeah.
She's doing the job perfectly fine, but it's the direction of the character kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And lastly, we have Charles Chaffee as Chairman Prescott and Adam Phoenix.
It's fine.
He gets a thumbs down.
You get thumbs down?
I don't know.
I think I would go,
I don't know. So he's the boss of the cog.
Yeah, what's kind of like, I think our friend John says,
I don't know. I just like, this is the guy you look up to. Whatever.
Move on.
Into the story here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Act 1. I think the opening of this game sucks.
It does suck.
There's this big opening cinematic and narration by the Queen, and basically like the last
the Queen, not Nicole Atkins, but
no, Queen.
The Queen.
The last we saw in this series, the light mass bomb went off and the locusts appear to be like stronger than ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. It just it keeps every game in this series does this thing where it's like, well, we got him this time. We definitely got him this time, and they never do.
Yeah.
So I think the first act is way too broken up, especially compared to the first game, where the first game is essentially just a very straightforward
running through the streets.
It's like takes place over a day or two, and it's a journey, right? So you have this first act in a hospital here. And you solidify, you remind people that Dom misses his wife. That's something we didn't really talk about in the first game, is that his wife went missing.
I think his kids are already deceased, right? And his wife was captured by the locusts.
Yeah. And nobody knows what happened to her, so they're on the lookout for her. And they go off on this big offensive on these big trucks called the Derricks. Our friend Derek.
I just think I think I said this to you as I was replaying it. I don't like the fans already know this. I don't like vehicle sequences, and I can't believe they broke up the pace this early.
Yeah, that's what surprised me.
Yeah,
and it's not. I mean, I don't know. I just don't find it as fun as I used to, where you get on the turret and you're just shooting down. You have to cool it down. It really breaks it up. It's really, you only had that one level where you're running around on the ground. You're in for like, I don't know, like 40 minutes of this truck bit.
And it's long.
There's quite a lot, and you break down. You have to get off for a bit.
This first act is weak.
It's weak. And you are getting ready for this big. You go through that town, Landown, and it's kind of a cool like snowy setting. But you're getting ready for this big dig into the locust territory, and these pods called grind lifts. And when this happens, this very like Star Wars character comes out, Scourge.
Yeah.
He's like the new Locust General, and he has a chainsaw staff.
Yeah,
which is so funny to me. It's just like,
wait, did they jump the shark right here? Yeah.
Look, it's cool, but it's so stupid.
It's stupid.
It's because you know what it is like the Lancer chainsaw thing just feels like. I could see maybe that happening.
Wait, can I give a counterpoint here?
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been cooler if it looked like they used a Lancer to make it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It almost looks like a ham-fisted Lancer, because locusts are like, oh, human technology looks cool. Let's try it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that would have been way
They would say
better.
it just like that.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. So I think with Act 2, it settles into itself a little bit here. You reunite with Colin Baird pretty early on. You hang out with Ben Carmine a lot.
Yep.
I like him better. I think he's the best one.
Yeah.
He's a very sweet kind of like newbie sort of character.
I have a note about Act 2, but I'm waiting for you to get to it.
Okay. Does it involve Ty?
I'm not. Keep going.
Okay. So Ty, you run into him here again because you hang out with him a lot in the first act, and then he gets captured, right?
Yeah.
You don't see him for a bit. And you find him on this big like beast barge thing.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of people in prison, and you find him. And I thought this was like, even back then, I thought this was really dumb. Is that when you save him, Marcus throws him a shotgun and he immediately blows his head off with it.
Yeah, he immediately takes his own life, right?
Why?
I don't know.
It's really just like he's been tortured, right? That's the implication.
Yes.
But it's been like an hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know.
What was your point? Go ahead.
Well, it's coming. It's coming. Keep going.
I don't have much. I just have that the worm shows up here.
Oh,
the
that's
SpongeBob.
Yep, that's. I actually
moment.
called this Jabu Jabu's Belly for adults.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I to be honest with you, I really like it.
Okay, I think I'm going to say this a lot. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth.
Yeah.
This game gets too silly, but this part is interesting.
Yeah.
You have to use like the Lancer to cut through like muscle and bone and
But
stuff.
even before that, when it's well, essentially the setup for this is like they're sinking cities with a giant worm.
Yeah, it's
like,
cool.
It's but you go through the ruins of the city that have been sunk and everything. I think that's really fun to play through. And then you get swallowed by the worm, and you have to like cut your way through it. And you go through like the different parts of its body.
Yeah, Jabu Jabu's Belly for adults.
It's basically. But I actually think Carmine's death here is horrifying.
Yeah,
and
he's getting my stomach acid or something.
There's like these little bugs. That
digestive bugs or something.
And they eat like you find him, and his stomach's been like ripped open.
Yeah.
He's like covered in acid, and he's like, "Tell my mom I love her." And I'm like, "Oh my god,
no!"
But very sad. But you get the gang back together, and you have to like chainsaw its heart out.
Yeah,
I fucking love that shit because you can drown in its blood.
Yeah,
it's so
very
gnarly.
creative.
Yeah, it's cool. But that's that, and this is another one of those moments in the series where I feel like, okay, we completed our objective, and now we need to reset, and it's very awkward.
Yes.
So you get a call from Hoffman. And Marcus is like, I need you to pick us up. And he drops off a tank and he says, I requested a pickup, not a drop off.
Yeah.
And you have to do this terrible, terrible tank section. It's awful.
I actually have a big note in all caps. This game has too many vehicle sequences.
It's definitely too many.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, maybe one later I like, but I don't like many of them.
No, me either.
This one definitely not, because you have to drive the tank on like icy lakes and stuff.
It's so annoying.
It's really annoying, and I don't like how this game. What I think is interesting about the last game is that you have normal locusts, and then you have these fucking like giant monsters, right?
Yeah.
That are really intimidating. In this game, you blow them away like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I get you're trying to depict that this warfare is large scale now, but it's too much.
Yep.
It's way too much. You just hit them with a tank shell and they're gone.
And I feel like this game just never really gets going. Like you have a fun little segment in Jabu Jabu, but then
it's
there's
very
another vehicle,
stoppy-starty.
a lot of stoppy-starty.
You go to I like the lab section. I think that's kind of effective.
Yeah.
Where you go in, you have to for some reason Hoffman sends you there because he thinks you're gonna find clues to where the locust like base is.
Yeah.
So you go through this lab, and this computer's talking to you, this computer guy, and it's very tantalizing, but they don't really get into it. It seems to be what maybe the origins of the locust are here.
Yeah.
And these like monstrosity guys. Yes. And I like it a lot. You pretty much just have to chainsaw them apart, which is an interesting kind of like oops, all chainsaws moment.
Oops.
But another thing that I really like here is the razor hail. I think because it kind of gets into the krill thing a little bit.
Yeah.
You have just hail that's really big, I guess.
Yep, and you have to it's hail that cuts you like glass.
Yes.
So you have to stay under cover, stay under rooftops and stuff.
And what's really cool is the boomers that have the big flails. They come in under their shields
as umbrellas. Yeah.
And you have to like shoot them and make them screw up and get killed by the razor hail. It's awesome. I love this part. So in terms of giant beasts, I do want to mention, I heard a rumor when this game was coming out that I got really excited about. The rumor was that there was going to be a big fish in it. And I was like, how big we talking?
Yeah.
And dude, this is still one of the biggest fishes I've seen in a game.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than that one in Resident Evil 4.
I was about to say,
much.
Cliffy B definitely likes Resident Evil 4. Like, he definitely likes it.
It's very goofy. It's very gamey.
Yeah.
But I still had a smile on my face.
Is this the only vehicle sequence you like? We were on the raft and you have to kill the fish.
There's another part later I'm thinking of, but
it's not bad.
I enjoy it.
It's not bad.
Because you're fighting other locusts on the raft too. And you get into Act 4, so that you're getting back underground here, looking for the locust base. I consider this one of the stronger chapters.
Okay.
For gameplay reasons, I think it's there's a lot of just straightforward
dude shooting
dudes.
Yep.
All right, so we have to talk about the elephant in the room in this game, which is when you find Maria. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, I have a note here in my preparation. The Dom's wife subplot feels forced and unearned. Executing her with the bull talk is hilarious, but where is the head pop sound?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
So they essentially do the thing where Dom's wife has been tortured for, I don't know, weeks, months, years, we don't know.
Yeah.
And she kind of comes out of the prison cage or something, and she just,
she looks fine at first,
but it's his imagination.
Yeah.
He did a little Silent Hill 2 nod, I guess.
I guess so.
And then she's essentially like a corpse of a human, like a zombie, like totally brain is, I don't know. How do you describe this?
I don't know, because the problem I have with it is that he's gone through so much, like, where's my wife? Where's my wife? He finally finds her, and she's been very, fucked up and tortured.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you, like, I don't know, try to rescue her and take her back to the cog base and see if you can get her therapy or something?
No, instead, Dom just executes her with the bolt.
Puts her down like Old Yeller out back behind the shed.
But where's the head pop?
Dude, we didn't get the head pop.
That would have been funny.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
It's a very, like, it's clear a comic book writer wrote this.
I mean, if it's okay, like, I'm going thumbs down with this subplot.
It sucks.
I think it's bad.
It's and it only leads to worse things. But yeah, this whole thing apparently is another loader connection here. There's this deleted chapter that they added later where you sneak in wearing Theron Guard costumes.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of cool. It would have made for an interesting
Lord
little
of the Rings
stealth
reference.
section. Yeah,
Yep.
But this is also another story beat I don't like, where we start introducing the Lambent.
Yeah.
So they kind of teased this in the last game with the Wretches.
Yeah.
But now it seems like some of the Locusts are getting mutated by the emulsion.
Yeah.
And they're turning into these exploding guys.
Yeah.
So you have normal Locusts fighting exploding Locusts.
It's so, dude, it's silly.
You don't fight any in this part, but they soft launch them here.
Yeah, and it just gets worse in later entries of this franchise.
Just gets worse. And I think this is where you find out Adam Phoenix, Marcus's father, his plan to flood the Locust Hollow, which seems like a better plan than last time.
Yes.
And you have the boss battle with Scourge here. What do you think about that part?
It's fine. I think it's silly. We've already jumped the shark. You're having chainsaw duels with a boss. It's fine.
Yeah. If there was a little... If it wasn't based on QuickTime events, I think it was kind of cool, because there's a part where he's like behind the pillars and throwing shit at you and all that stuff.
It's all right. I think we've jumped the shark here, or they have.
Yeah,
I think they have.
And I think he just, like, you cut his chainsaw apart and he leaves, right?
Something like that.
It just fucks off.
Yeah.
But then you get into what I actually think. I like the Reaver escape in terms of vehicle sections. It's one of the stronger ones,
one
for
of the flying
sure.
segments.
Because it's another one of those train moments where you're flying over the landscape. You and the gang, you get on Reavers.
You like it because it's like Star Fox.
Star Fox, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
More Star Fox.
But it plays reasonably well compared to the other ones, and you have to defeat the Scourge guy on his giant squid. It's ridiculous.
But how is defeating him on a giant squid cooler than just chainsawing him?
It should have been like you shove his face in a chainsaw or something.
I don't know. I don't know. They already blew it.
Yeah, but I mean, indulge me in particulars here.
Yeah, sure.
So Act 5, you get back to Jacinto, the home base, like the city. Very rushed, very quick final act here. I think a lot of people said that about it. There are a couple cool things. I think the general design of the city is really cool, as it's kind of being engulfed in flame. Mm-hmm. There's a part where you have to ride an elevator sideways because a building is tipped over.
I don't know if Uncharted got it from Gears or Gears got it from Uncharted, but that happens in Uncharted.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so this was 2008.
Ooh, same year.
Same year?
Interesting.
Wow, that's strange. But yeah, that's I don't know. I'm picking for positives here.
Yeah.
But the entire ending is such a slog, where you you get to ride a Brumac, and it's just not as cool as it should be, and that old chestnut.
I think the barrel's running pretty dry here.
But like that, it's just another vehicle section that isn't fun.
I think there are 5 or 6 or more in this game. There are a lot.
Quite a few. And even back then, I thought the ending was insulting.
Yeah, sure.
So you're trying to flood the hollow, and you need to bomb like underneath Jacinto. and their bomb plan goes sideways. So the Brumac that you've been riding is rapidly turning lambent, so they have to blow it up. And there's a fake air quotes boss fight with a lambent Brumac, and it's just literally just holding down the trigger on the Hammer of Dawn.
Yes.
It's so dumb.
It's not great. It almost feels like a worse version of like the Resident Evil 5 final boss, also same year, I think.
With Wesker?
Like rocket launchers in the helicopter, remember that shit?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of similar.
Interesting. I did think it was cool that they don't have the Hammer of Dawn until the last act in this game.
That is true. I mean, I will say this. I think it's an interesting story beat where you realize that Marcus's dad also wanted to sink the city. Like the Locusts and Marcus had the same idea, but for a different reason.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
No, I think overall, like the plot structure is pretty fine, where you almost have this Homeric, like you're journeying out to the heart of darkness and coming back home at the end, and
you realize that what you were trying to prevent is what you need to do.
Exactly.
It's not bad.
No. It's just, and so everything gets flooded, and everyone is kind of on helicopters leaving.
Yeah.
And, they just hint of more will come, right? So getting into the conclusion here.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently about this game to reiterate everything?
Ouch. That's really tricky. I think for me, I don't know if I would cut all the vehicle sequences or I'd make them much shorter. I think the vehicles,
cut at least half of them.
The first act is tough.
Yeah.
I think what's the dizzy vehicle called the derricks or whatever? It happens too early. You gotta like let dudes shoot dudes for a while.
Yeah.
I don't like the pacing of
at
Act
least for
1.
the whole first act.
I don't know if I would have had the Dom subplot at all.
Yeah.
With his wife, I may have just let it be unanswered. That's really tricky.
Or just handle it completely differently.
Or handle it completely differently. Ooh, Dom's wife is the Locust Queen.
Oh,
That's a bad idea. That's a terrible idea. I don't know. Ouch. There's a couple of things I don't like about this game.
I think for me, it's just really set piece heavy, and sometimes, and that kind of stuck it in my memory pretty well. Of like, oh, I remember the part with the big fish. I remember the part where you go out on the derricks, but
I don't like any of them.
It makes it's just the moment to moment gameplay that you like about the first Gears
seems a little wrong.
Is very interrupted by these moments.
Yeah.
And it in a lot of places it kind of feels like Gears of War the ride.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You're not like moving around that much.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Shooting.
You mean like the theme park ride?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is concluding our first episode on Gears. What are we going to give this one?
I have a funny grade for a lot of these in a row. I might go C+ here.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I'm going to go B- on this one just because I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, and I think Horde is a lot of fun.
I debated going B- on this.
Because I think it gets worse, and I don't think it gets that much worse, but it's this one for me. It's a solid step down from the first one.
Absolutely. I just think if I were to quickly summarize before we end, I have a bad taste in my mouth for the art style, the color palette, the tone. They jump the shark. It's too silly, and I think with all the vehicle sequences on top of it, I might go C+. I think I'm going to go C+. I'm okay with your B-.
Okay.
Do you have any other thoughts, or are we ending?
No, I'm okay with your C+. I think it's perfectly reasonable. I'm surprised that in hindsight, looking back at the grades at the time, they were very positive.
Yeah.
And there's clearly a lot of issues, but that's going to do it for me on 1 and 2.
Okay. So that's going to do it for Gears of War 1 and 2. And we are going to be talking about more Gears of War next week. And we'll see you guys next time on Goddamn GameCube.